I've been driving for the Prescott family for 5 years. Victoria, the eldest daughter, calls me a pathetic doormat just about every day. When she drags me out with her friends, it's only to humiliate me. A loser like that is only good for carrying your purse. Later, she would trash the entire mansion, crying until she collapsed. But what good is regret now? You were the one who thought I was nothing because I was broke. I stare at the transfer notification on my phone, my mind blank. I just sent this month's paycheck to my sister back home. My bank balance was back down to 3 digits. Outside, the roar of a sports car grew louder. I knew it was her. Victoria Prescott was back. I hurried to the entrance of the garage, waiting. Sure enough, the flashy red Porsche 911 screeched to a halt right in front of me. Another foot, and it would have hit my faded jeans. The window rolled down. Victoria's face, hidden behind oversized sunglasses, was a mask of impatience. What are you doing, standing there like a statue? Get this thing to the dealership for a tune-up now? She slammed the door and got out, a cloud of perfume and stale champagne hitting me in the face. I slipped silently into the driver's seat. The leather was still warm from her body, the air thick with her scent. In the rearview mirror, I could see her stumbling toward the mansion. I'd seen this scene 1,000 times over the last 5 years. Ever since she got her license at 18, I've been her personal driver and her favorite punching bag. Ethan, what are you waiting for? Get it done, and then take me to the Celestial Club. Victoria had suddenly reappeared, rapping her knuckles on the window. I just nodded, keeping my head down. She knew I'd never talk back. The pay was too good. It was enough to cover my sister's medical bills and to keep my broken family afloat. Half an hour later, I dropped her at the club's entrance. She was touching up her lipstick in a vanity mirror when her eyes met mine in the rearview. I'm meeting my friends tonight, she said. You're coming with me. I froze. She never took me to things like this. In her world, people from my world didn't exist. Ms. Prescott, should I change? She let out a short, sharp laugh. Change into what? You look perfect just the way you are. And remember, don't say a word. If you embarrass me, I'll kill you. She slammed the door and walked away, the click of her heels fading into the night. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, my nails digging into my palms. At 7 o'clock, I drove Victoria to an exclusive lounge downtown. She was on the phone the entire ride, her voice syrupy sweet in a way I'd never heard before. I know. I promise, you're all going to be so surprised. After hanging up, she leaned forward from the back seat. Hey, Ethan, when you see my friends, be smart. Especially my best friend, Sophia Hayes. She just got back in the country, and she's in a mood. Your job is to pour her drinks and light her cigarettes. Got it. I nodded in silence, though a flicker of surprise went through me. I'd heard the name Sophia Hayes a million times. Victoria's plain-looking but loaded best friend. Rumor was, her family's empire made the Prescotts look like small-time players. But she was famously strange and always single. The moment the door to the private room opened, I was blinded by the glitter inside. The air was a mix of laughter and a dozen expensive perfumes. A group of young women in designer clothes were draped over a velvet sofa. The one in the center commanded the room. Long, dark curls, pale skin, sharp, intelligent eyes. She wore a simple white dress, but she outshone Victoria and all her gaudy jewelry. Victoria gave me a shove. Go pour Sophia a drink. I kept my head down and walked over. My hand trembled as I picked up the crystal decanter. It wasn't nerves. It was humiliation. Well, Victoria, who's this? Your new pet? A girl with a sharp bob asked with a smirk. Victoria swirled the wine in her glass, looking smug. He's my driver. I brought him along for you guys to play with. The table erupted in laughter. Someone flicked a balled-up cocktail napkin at me. He's not bad-looking, but his clothes are tragic. Victoria, you're so cheap. You don't even give your staff a clothing allowance. Victoria's smile widened. Does he deserve one? He makes $6,000 a month. That's generous enough. I clenched my jaw and said nothing. My eyes accidentally met the girl in the white dress. She wasn't laughing or speaking. She was just watching me, her expression unreadable. Hey, driver, the girl with the bob said, suddenly sticking her foot out in front of me. Tie my shoe for me, would you? These new Roger Viviers are a bitch to bend over in. The whole room laughed again. Victoria kicked me in the calf. Go on, Don't just stand there like a block of wood. As I knelt, I heard someone whisper, "Victoria, your driver is so obedient." And Victoria's proud reply, "Of course he is. I own him." My fingers touched the cold, crystal-studded buckle. Then, I heard Sophia's voice. Wait, it was cool and clear, like ice clinking in a glass. Everyone looked at her. She stood up and walked over to me. She bent down and tied the other girl's shoelace herself. Then she turned to Victoria. "Victoria, this is too much." Victoria's smile froze on her face. The room went silent. Sophia took my arm and pulled me to my feet. "He's a driver, not a slave. This is making me uncomfortable." I stared at the hand gripping my sleeve. Her fingers were pale and slender, her nails neatly trimmed. Nothing like Victoria's, which were always encrusted with diamonds. Victoria's expression shifted, and she forced a laugh. "Oh, come on, Sophia," feeling sorry for him. "Don't be ridiculous. He's just a driver." Sophia ignored her, turning to me instead. "What's your name?" "Ethan," I said, my voice hoarse. She nodded. "Ethan, would you mind taking me home? It's too loud in here." I instinctively glanced at Victoria. Her face was a thundercloud, but she was still trying to smile. "Sophia, stay a little longer." Sophia picked up her purse. "No, I have a headache." She looked at me. "Let's go, Ethan." I looked at Victoria again. She was glaring at me through clenched teeth, but she nodded. "Fine, go. Make sure you get Sophia home safe." Sophia was silent the whole way back. She sat in the back, staring out the window as the city lights streaked across her face. She was so beautiful it didn't seem real. I stuck a glance at her in the rearview mirror and found her looking right back at me. I quickly looked away, but I heard her laugh softly. "You're afraid of Victoria, aren't you?" I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "She's my boss." Sophia said. "How long have you been driving for her?" 5 years. "That long?" There was a note of surprise in her voice. "Why haven't you found a better job?" I was silent for a few seconds. "I need the money." She didn't ask any more questions. When we pulled up to her mansion, she suddenly held out a business card. "My company is hiring an executive driver. Starts at 15 grand a month. If you're interested, come in for an interview tomorrow." I just stared, not taking it. She tucked the card into my shirt pocket herself. Her fingers brushed against my chest. They were cool. "Think I'm a scammer?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. I shook my head. "Why are you helping me?" She opened her door, her voice floating back on the night air. "Maybe because I've been a doormat too." Victoria didn't call me for several days after that. When she finally did, she sounded furious. "When did you get your hooks into Sophia?" She actually asked me to let her hire you away. I held the phone, saying nothing. She sneered. "Don't get any ideas, Ethan. You think you've hit the jackpot. Sophia's just playing with you. All her exes are billionaires. What the hell are you?" I waited for her to finish. "Ms. Prescott, if that's all, I have to go. My sister has a checkup." Her voice shot up an octave. "You're not going anywhere. You're taking me shopping today. Sophia will be there. And you'd better act like the loser you are. You hear me? If you even think about taking that job, I'll make sure your sister gets cut off from her medication." I stood in the hospital corridor, watching the patients come and go. Finally, my voice raw, I said, "Okay." It was the same club, but this time it was just Victoria and Sophia. They were already arguing when I walked in. "What's your problem, Sophia? Is it fun, trying to steal my driver?" Sophia's voice was calm. "I'm just giving him a choice." "Victoria, you're overreacting." Victoria slammed a glass on the table. "Overreacting? You know, I hate it when people touch my things." Sophia looked up at me, her gaze steady. "Ethan, do you want the job? $2,500 a week. Full benefits for 1K match. 3 weeks paid vacation a year." Before I could speak, Victoria shrieked, "Ethan, you dare say yes." She stormed over and pointed a finger in my face. "Don't you forget who signs your checks, who pays your sister's medical bills. Without the Prescotts, you're nothing." Sophia stood up. "I'll cover his sister's medical expenses, and I'll bring a team of specialists to consult." She looked at Victoria. "Do you really have to make this so difficult?" Victoria's eyes were red with fury. She snatched a glass of red wine from the table and threw it right in my face. The cold liquid ran down my hair, instantly staining the collar of my shirt. "Get out!" she screamed at me. I'll deal with you when I get home. I wiped my face and turned to leave, but Sophia grabbed my wrist. She pulled a handkerchief from her purse and gently dabbed the wine from my face. Then she looked at Victoria, her voice like ice. Victoria, from now on, Ethan works for me. You touch him again and see what happens. Victoria's eyes widened in disbelief. Sophia, you're turning on me for a driver. Sophia didn't answer her. She just took my hand and pulled me out of the room. Behind us, we heard the sound of Victoria smashing everything in sight, and Sophia's calm voice. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Be at my office. Text me your shirt size. I'll have a uniform tailored for you. Victoria called me over 30 times that night. I didn't pick up. Finally, she sent a text. You're finished, Ethan. Hope your sister likes being taken off her meds. I sat on a bench in the hospital corridor, staring at the message until the screen went dark. My sister was asleep in her room, the sound of the ventilator a steady rhythm. The nurse had just been by to ask about the bill again. She said if we didn't pay up, they'd have to adjust her treatment plan. I buried my head in my hands. A lump of despair lodged in my throat. At 3 in the morning, my phone lit up. It was a bank alert. Chase Bank. A direct deposit of $30,000 was made to your account ending in 8885 on September 16th at 03:01 a.m. Memo. Sophia Hayes salary advance. I stared at the numbers, my fingers trembling as I checked them again and again. 10 minutes later, a message from Sophia came through on WhatsApp. Let me know if you need more. Good night. Just a few simple words. I held my phone and looked at them all night. The next day, I went to Prescott Industries to quit. HR approved it quickly, but Victoria stormed into the office. She slapped me across the face in front of everyone. You backstabbing piece of trash. How much is Sophia paying you? I'll double it. I held my hand to my stinging cheek. Ms. Prescott, let's just part ways peacefully. She sneered. Peacefully? Who do you think you are? If I hadn't taken pity on you, you and your sister would have starved to death by now. She raised her voice, making sure the entire office could hear. Dozens of eyes were on me. I bent down to pick up my resignation letter from the floor and turned to leave. But she grabbed me by the collar. Get on your knees and apologize, and maybe I'll consider letting your sister keep her treatment. My body went rigid. I looked at the malice in her eyes and suddenly remembered my first interview 5 years ago. She had looked down on me just like this. You need money? Then you'd better learn to be obedient. We Prescotts love an obedient dog. 4 or 5 years, I'd taken a fall for her, been her chauffeur, her verbal punching bag, her scapegoat. I even spent a night in a holding cell when she was caught driving drunk, and none of it had earned me an ounce of respect. I slowly pried her fingers off my shirt. The medical bills are covered. Thank you for everything, Ms. Prescott. Her face twisted. Where did you get the money? It was that bitch Sophia, wasn't it? She snatched my phone and smashed it on the ground. The screen shattered. I'll teach you to take her money. The sharp click of heels sounded from the doorway. Sophia walked in, flanked by 4 security guards. She glanced at my shattered phone on the floor, then her eyes landed on my face. Who hit you? Victoria instinctively took a step back. Sophia, what are you doing here? Sophia ignored her, stepping closer and gently touching my swollen cheek. I asked you a question. Who hit you? The office was dead silent. I lowered my eyes. I ran into something. Sophia smiled. She turned to Victoria. Victoria, care to explain? Victoria tried to look composed. He's breaching his contract. I was just disciplining an employee. What's wrong with that? Sophia took a checkbook from her purse, wrote a number, and tossed it at her. 10 times the penalty clause. Is that enough? Victoria's face went white. Sophia, do you have to do this? Sophia took my hand. And one more thing. As of today, Ethan is my fiancé. You lay a hand on him again, and I'll tear down your entire family. The words were like a bomb, silencing the entire office. Even I stared at Sophia in shock. She looked back at me, her expression calm. I proposed last night. You accepted. Having second thoughts, I was too stunned to speak. Victoria suddenly screamed. You've only known him for a few days. Sophia, are you insane? Sophia raised an eyebrow. More sane than you. At least I know. You can't keep a person on a leash. She led me out of the office, the entire floor craning their necks to watch. Victoria's hysterical screams were cut off as the guards closed the door. In the elevator, I looked at my own pathetic reflection next to Sophia's perfect, composed image. Ms. Hayes, what you said back there, that was just a tactic, right? Sophia touched up her lipstick in the mirrored wall. Call me Sophia. She turned to face me. Or fiancé. That works too. My ears burned. I'll pay you back for medical bills as soon as I can. This fake engagement thing. She suddenly stood on her toes and leaned in. Her lipstick left a mark at the corner of my mouth. Who said it was fake? I don't make jokes like that. Just then, her phone rang, and she answered it as casually as if she'd just been commenting on the weather. I stood frozen, the scent of her hair still lingering in the air. For the next month, I was the laughingstock of the city. Everyone said Sophia Hayes had lost her mind, picking up Victoria Prescott's trash and treating it like treasure. Victoria, for her part, posted about it on her Instagram story every day. Some people think they're climbing the ladder, but they're really just mooching. Hilarious watching my bestie pick up my leftovers. I always scrolled past without a word, but Sophia would screenshot them and post them in a group chat. Victoria, darling, Ethan and I are having our engagement party next week. Be sure to save the date. Victoria immediately called, screaming. Sophia put her on speaker. Sophia, who the hell are you trying to piss off? Are you really going to marry that lowlife? What do you see in him? That he's poor? That he's pathetic? Sophia was helping me pick out an engagement ring. She just laughed. He's good in bed. Want to try? Victoria hung up. I was so embarrassed I wanted the floor to swallow me. Sophia, you don't have to do this. She slipped a platinum band onto my ring finger. Do what? Was I wrong? She looked up, her eyelashes like butterflies. Or are you not good in bed? My face was on fire. I couldn't speak. She smiled and patted my cheek. Don't worry. We'll have plenty of time to test it out after we're married. The night before the engagement party, Victoria called me again. She was wasted at some bar. Ethan, come get me. If you don't, I'm going to jump off a bridge. I was going to ignore her, but then I heard she was making a scene by herself at a waterfront club. I went. 5 years of habit are hard to break. When I got there, she was hugging a pillar, sobbing. She stumbled toward me when she saw me. I knew you wouldn't be able to stay away. She reeked of alcohol and tried to burrow into my arms. I pushed her away, frowning. Ms. Prescott, I called your driver. He's on his way. She slapped me. Even you look down on me now? Don't forget who put food on your table. I backed away, holding my cheek. Your tab is paid. I'm leaving. But she grabbed the corner of my jacket and started crying. Ethan, I regret it. Don't marry Sophia. Okay, I'll be good to you from now on. I froze. It was the first time in 5 years she had ever sounded vulnerable, and it had to be under these ridiculous circumstances. Ms. Prescott, you're drunk. I tried to pry her hand away, but she suddenly dropped to her knees and hugged my legs, her voice trembling. I really regret it. The truth is, I like you. I was just too scared to admit it. I was afraid they'd laugh at me for falling for a driver. The streetlight cast a pale, sickly glow on her tear-streaked face. I stood there, motionless, feeling surprisingly calm. Ms. Prescott, you're just upset that you lost. She shook her head violently, tears splattering on my pants. No, it's not. Every day, watching you drive me. Making me coffee after I've been drinking. Getting rid of those guys who bothered me. I got used to it. She choked on a sob, unable to continue. I looked down at her, remembering so many things from the past 5 years. The designer bag she threw at my head when she was angry. The vomit she left in my car when she was drunk. The time she called me that pathetic doormat in front of her friends. And the tears I'd wiped away while staring at hospital bills. Getting used to something isn't the same as liking it. I gently pulled my leg free. Go home, Ms. Prescott. She grabbed me again, a wild look in her eyes. Then what do you like about Sophia? That she's rich. Anything she can give you, I can give you too. I looked at her bloodshot eyes and felt a wave of exhaustion. She wouldn't make me tie someone's shoes in public. She wouldn't throw wine in my face. And she would never threaten me with my sister's life. Victoria's hand slowly went limp. She slumped to the ground, looking like all the life had been drained out of her. As I turned to walk away, she whispered, Ethan, if I hadn't treated you that way, would you have liked me? I didn't turn back. No, because you're not her. The night air was cold as I left the bar. My phone lit up with a message from Sophia. What time are you coming home? Want me to order some food? I smiled as I read the words. In the distance, a pair of headlights approached. Sophia's white Bentley pulled up in front of me. She rolled down the window, an eyebrow raised. Fiancé, caught you cheating, did I? I opened the door and got in, just picking up a drunk. She leaned over to buckle my seatbelt, the ends of her hair brushing against my chin. It tickled. Victoria? Yeah. She suddenly bit my earlobe gently. Next time you sneak off to see her without telling me, I'll tie you to the bed, and you won't be getting out for 3 days. My ears burned. Sophia, there's nothing going on between us. She smiled and started the car. I know, and it wouldn't matter if there was. You're not getting away from me. As we drove onto the freeway, she asked, Are you nervous about tomorrow? I watched the city lights blur past the window. I'm nervous you'll change your mind. She took one hand off the wheel and laced her fingers through mine. Ethan, the word regret isn't in my vocabulary. In my book, there's widowhood, but no divorce. I squeezed her cool fingers. Then I looked forward to it. Fiancé. In the rearview mirror, the bar's neon sign faded into the distance, like some dim and distant past. Ahead, the road was brightly lit. Sophia's words made my heart skip a beat. Widowhood felt like an icicle to the chest, but seeing the smile on her face, I brushed it off as a dark joke. After all, she'd been unbelievably good to me this past month. She'd arranged for the best medical team for my sister, even moved my parents from our small town to a high-end assisted living facility. What did she see in me? All I could do was try to be better to her. I started waking up early to make her breakfast, memorizing all her likes and dislikes. When she was stressed from work, I learned how to give massages to help her relax. Even though she always said, Ethan, you don't have to be such a pushover, I knew she secretly liked it. Who doesn't like being the center of someone's universe? The night before the engagement party, I was too nervous to sleep. I snuck out onto the balcony for a smoke. Sophia wrapped her arms around my waist from behind. Second thoughts. I shook my head. Scared you'll have them tomorrow. She chuckled, her warm breath on my ear. Then maybe I should give you a reason to be sure right now. Her fingers slid under the hem of my pajama shirt. The cool touch made me flinch. Sophia, we have to be up early. She mumbled against my shoulder. Then we'll make it quick. She was insatiable that night, leaving a map of scratches on my back, as if she were branding me as her property. As I finally drifted off, exhausted, I heard her whisper, Ethan, after tomorrow, you'll be completely mine. I was too tired to think about what she meant. Now I understand. The engagement party was held at a 7-star hotel owned by Sophia's family. The length of the red carpet alone was intimidating. It was flanked by mountains of white roses, flown in that morning, apparently. Victoria was there, wearing a fire engine red dress that screamed, I'm here to make a scene. She sneered when she saw me. How's being a gold digger treating you? I ignored her, my palms slick with sweat. Sophia appeared moments later in a custom mermaid gown. So beautiful, she practically glowed. She took my arm naturally. Fiancé, ready for your execution? Her joke made me smile, and some of the tension eased. The ceremony went smoothly, until the MC asked Sophia to say a few words. She took the microphone and smiled at me. First, thank you all for coming, and a special thanks to my dear friend, Victoria Prescott. The camera immediately zoomed in on Victoria, who was forcing a tight smile. Sophia continued, If it weren't for Victoria's generosity in letting him go, I never would have found such a... She paused deliberately. The room went quiet. I looked at her, expecting a compliment. Instead, she said, Fun toy to play with. A shocked murmur went through the crowd. I stood there, frozen, thinking I must have misheard. But Sophia's smile only grew wider. I'm kidding, of course. The crowd laughed, relieved, but I could see the coldness in her eyes. Her next words sent me into a free fall. Actually, the main reason I invited you all here today was to announce that my engagement to Ethan is fake. With every word, the color drained from my face. It was all part of a bet with Victoria, to see if I could take the man she threw away and have some fun with him for a month. And now that I have, she turned to look at me, her eyes like chips of ice. The experience was just okay. You can have him back, Victoria. She pulled the engagement ring off her finger and pressed it into my hand. The cold platinum dug into my palm. The room was dead silent, then erupted in whispers. Victoria looked shocked for a second, then a triumphant smile spread across her face. She rushed onto the stage and grabbed the microphone. I told you all, this kind of trash doesn't belong in our world. Sophia, you won the bet. Drinks are on me tonight. They high-fived, laughing, like two actresses in a well-rehearsed play. And I was left standing on the stage, the clown whose mask had just been ripped off. Flashbulbs went off, capturing my pale face and the ring clenched in my fist. I looked at Sophia, searching her eyes for any sign that this was a joke. But she just looked away, already discussing where to go celebrate with Victoria. The MC tried to smooth things over. Well, it was all a joke, huh? And now, if our happy couple would. I pushed past him and stumbled off the stage. Every step felt like I was walking on broken glass. Behind me, I heard Sophia's voice, clear and cold. Oh, and by the way, the money and resources I provided for your family, consider that payment for services rendered. You were, after all, very attentive this past month. The roar of laughter was deafening. I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood fighting back tears. I burst out of the hotel into a downpour. I didn't have an umbrella. I just walked into the rain, hoping it could wash away the filth of the whole affair. My phone buzzed. A message from Sophia. Not bad acting. That hurt expression at the end was very convincing. It was followed by a bank notification. $100,000. The memo read, severance pay. I doubled over on the sidewalk, dry heaving, my stomach twisting into knots. I don't know how I made it back to the apartment. It wasn't my home, of course. It was a place Sophia had bought for me. The key code didn't work anymore. The building's concierge politely asked me to leave. Ms. Hayes instructed us to reclaim the property tonight. I stood in the hallway dazed. My phone was at 2%. Just then, my sister's doctor called. Mr. Miller, about your sister's surgery tomorrow. We're going to need payment submitted again. We were just informed that Ms. Hayes will no longer be covering the costs. I slid to the floor as the screen went black. The sound of the rain was a dull roar outside the window. I sat in the fire escape stairwell until dawn, when a janitor came to kick me out. Hey, buddy, move it. You're in the way. I dragged my stiff body out of the building and saw Victoria leaning against her Porsche, waiting for me. She walked over, holding an umbrella, a smug look on her face. Kicked to the curb already? I didn't say anything. She reached out to touch my cheek. I told you. Sophia was just playing with you. Do you believe me now? I slapped her hand away. This has nothing to do with you. She didn't get angry. She just smiled. You poor thing, Ethan. Like a stray dog with nowhere to go. She opened the car door. Get in. I'll take you back. I didn't move. She raised an eyebrow. Don't you want to save your sister? Who else is going to take you in? Her words hit their mark. It was true. Who else could I turn to? In the end, I got in her car. The stereo was blasting obnoxious dance music. Victoria was humming along, clearly in a good mood. At a red light, she leaned in close. You know why Sophia did that to you, right? I stared out the window. Because I'm pathetic. She laughed loudly. That's part of it. But more importantly, I agreed to give her that downtown development deal. The condition was that she had to play this little game with you. She said it so casually, like she was talking about the weather. I whipped my head around to look at her. You planned this from the beginning. She winked. We made the deal the day she asked me for you. Did you really think she would ever actually be interested in you? My fingernails dug into my palms, but I couldn't feel a thing. The entire beautiful month had been nothing but a transaction, and I was the only one who thought it was real. Victoria took me back to her mansion. She threw a staff uniform at me. You'll live in the staff quarters from now on. You'll be responsible for cleaning and driving. $6,000 a month. Same as before. She sat on the sofa, crossing her legs. What are you waiting for? Take off my shoes. I stood frozen. Her expression hardened. Ethan, don't forget whose hands your sister's life is in. I slowly knelt, my fingers trembling as I undid her laces. She used the toe of her shoe to lift my chin. Say thank you, Victoria. I closed my eyes. Thank you, Victoria. She patted my head, pleased. Good. You're my good little dog again. From that day on, I was back where I started, or maybe worse. Victoria became even more demanding, constantly bringing up how Sophia had played me. I heard you cry like a baby that night. She would always burst out laughing after saying it. I just worked in silence, speaking even less than before, only at night. Lying on a narrow bed in the staff quarters, would I stare at the ceiling, wondering why Sophia had been so cruel. She could have just said she was bored. Why did she have to humiliate me in front of the entire city? A week later, Victoria took me to a party. And of course, we ran into Sophia. She was on the arm of a handsome model, and she didn't even glance my way. Victoria deliberately raised her voice. Well, if it isn't the great Sophia Hayes. Got yourself a new toy already? Sophia gave her a cool look. Why talk about old toys? Besides, I see you're still picking at my trash. They traded barbs with fake smiles, while I stood nearby holding a tray of drinks, completely invisible. The model suddenly pointed at me. Is that the fiancé? Sophia laughed lightly. Fiancé. That's a nice way of putting it. She finally looked at me, her gaze as cold as if I were a stranger. You, give me a glass of champagne. I held one out to her, my head bowed. As she took it, she loosened her grip, letting the glass fall and shatter on the floor. Champagne soaked the leg of my pants. Oh, sorry, she said, her voice dripping with insincerity. My hand slipped. Victoria immediately started yelling at me. You idiot. Can't you even hold a glass? Get on your knees and clean it up. I gripped the tray, not moving. Sophia raised an eyebrow. Victoria, your dog isn't listening very well. Victoria kicked me in the shin. Did you hear me? Kneel. All eyes in the room turned to us, hungry for the drama. I slowly crouched down and began picking up the pieces of glass with my bare hands. I didn't even notice when a shard cut my finger. Suddenly, Sophia's stiletto heel was pressing down on the back of my hand, the sharp point grinding into the cut. The pain made me gasp. She leaned down and whispered, "Remember this pain, and don't ever try to reach above your station again." Then she smiled, took the model's arm, and walked away as if nothing had happened. After that day, I became even more withdrawn. Victoria seemed to be enjoying herself, though, taking me everywhere to show me off. Look how obedient my dog is. He'll do whatever I say. I went along with all of it, but inside, something had died. The only time I felt anything was when I got news that my sister was recovering well. One night, Victoria came home drunk and smashed every bottle in the liquor cabinet. She pointed at me. Ethan, why aren't you crying? Why aren't you begging me like you used to? I quietly started sweeping up the glass. You should get some rest, Victoria. She burst into tears. I regret it, you know. I never should have agreed to Sophia's stupid bet. It hurts me to see you like this. I handed her a tissue. It's over. She grabbed my wrist. What if I said I like you? For real. Can we start over? I looked at her tears and was suddenly reminded of the look in Sophia's eyes when she had been acting. They were the same, craving what they couldn't have, destroying what they got. Victoria, you're just upset that you lost. I pulled my hand away, like a child whose toy was taken away. You want it back, but you'll be bored with it in 2 days. Her expression froze, and she slapped me hard. Get out. I turned and left the room, hearing her screaming and throwing things behind me. You're all bastards. Later that night, I was polishing the cars in the garage when my phone lit up. It was an unknown number. Does your hand still hurt? I stared at the text for a long time before deleting it and blocking the number. Whoever it was, it didn't matter anymore. The next day, Victoria announced she was going on a business trip and that I was coming with her. She was unusually quiet on the way to the airport. It was only when we got there that she said, "It's not really a business trip. I'm taking you on vacation." I frowned. My sister. Everything's been arranged. Her voice was uncharacteristically calm. Ethan, just 3 days. Let me make it up to you. I saw the exhaustion in her eyes and finally nodded. On the plane, she held my hand the entire time, as if she were afraid I'd disappear. I had no idea what game she was playing now, but it didn't matter. The hotel was a beachside resort. She had booked the penthouse suite. The balcony doors opened onto a private beach. Do you like it? She hugged me from behind. I'll bring you here all the time. I gently pushed her away. Victoria, you don't have to do this. I'll do my job. Her eyes darkened for a moment, but then she smiled again. Let's go for a swim. You always loved the ocean. It was true. I used to love the ocean, but now the water scared me. It reminded me of a night on a yacht with Sophia. She had pointed at the stars and said, "I'll bring you here every year." Another lie. Victoria had a great time dragging me into countless photos. She even posted one on Instagram with the caption, On vacation with the one I love. The comments were all asking if we were back together. She replied with a blushing emoji. I scrolled past it. That night, she opened a bottle of wine and, halfway through, started to cry. Ethan, I was wrong. I never should have treated you that way. And I never should have made that bet with Sophia. I handed her a tissue. It's in the past. She grabbed my hand. What about us? Can we start over? I looked at her tear-streaked face and felt so tired. Victoria, you only like the idea of me being obedient. You don't like me for who I am. She shook her head violently. That's not true. I see things clearly now. She leaned in to kiss me. I turned my head away. I'm sorry. She froze, then slowly started to smile. It was uglier than her crying. I knew it. You still hate me. We slept in separate rooms that night. In the middle of the night, I woke up choking on thick smoke. Outside my door, the hallway was engulfed in flames. The hotel fire alarm was blaring. I ran to her room and pounded on the door. Victoria. No answer. I kicked the door in and found her passed out on the bed, probably from the alcohol. The smoke was getting thicker. I gritted my teeth, hoisted her onto my back, and ran. Burning debris was falling from the ceiling. A large piece was about to hit her, and I threw my arm up to block it. The searing pain that shot up my arm made me stumble. Victoria moaned on my back. Ethan, what's happening? Don't be scared. I steadied myself, my teeth clenched. Hold on tight. The smoke was so thick I could barely see. I navigated toward the emergency exit from memory. More burning chunks of the ceiling rained down. One was about to hit Victoria's head. I instinctively used my hand to shield her. The sharp, burning pain made me grunt. Are you okay? Victoria asked, her voice choked with tears. I'm fine, I rasped. Just hold on. By the time I finally burst out of the building, I collapsed onto the lawn, completely spent. Firefighters rushed over to help. As they were putting Victoria on a stretcher, she clung to my hand. Don't leave me. I gently pried her fingers away. Victoria, I need to get this burn looked at. She saw my arm, raw and blistering, and burst into tears. I'm sorry. I got you hurt again. I shook my head, not saying anything. The pain was intense as the paramedics cleaned the wound, but it was nothing compared to the numbness in my heart. Victoria had only suffered minor smoke inhalation, but she insisted on having a bed moved into my hospital room. If you hadn't saved me, I might have died, she said, her hands still shaking as she tried to peel an apple. After everything I did to you, why did you still save me? I looked out the window. I would have done it for anyone. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I called off the deal with Sophia. I'm not giving her the downtown property. Will you? Come back. I turned to look at her. Victoria, as soon as my sister's surgery is over, I'm quitting. The apple fell from her hand. You still hate me? I don't hate you, I said calmly. I'm just tired. After we were discharged, I went back to being Victoria's driver. But she was different. She didn't fly off the handle anymore. One day, she even gave me a bonus. Get your sister something nice, she said, avoiding my eyes. Don't read into it. It's just a reward for saving me. I took the money. Thank you, Victoria. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something else, but in the end, she just waved her hand. Get back to work. I took the day off for my sister's surgery. Victoria insisted on coming to the hospital with me. I know the director here. I can make sure things go smoothly. The surgery was a success. The doctor came out smiling. If she keeps recovering like this, she'll be able to live a completely normal life. I sank to my knees in the hallway and cried, burying my face in my hands. The weight I'd been carrying for years was finally gone. Victoria gently patted my back. This is a good thing. Why are you crying? She handed me a tissue. What are your plans now? I wiped my eyes. I want to take my parents and my sister back home, open a small shop. Her face fell. You're not going to stay? I shook my head. There's no point in forcing my way into a world I don't belong in. She didn't try to persuade me. But the next day, a large sum of money appeared in my bank account. It's not charity, she said awkwardly. Consider it an investment in your shop. Pay me back when you make a profit. I looked at the amount, enough to start a franchise, and sent it back with a sad smile. I appreciate the thought, but I can't accept it. She suddenly lost her temper. Ethan, why do you have to draw such a hard line with me? Can't you just let me try to make things right? I looked at her calmly. Victoria, you don't owe me anything. I saved you because it was the right thing to do, not because I wanted something in return. She stormed out, her eyes red. The resignation process was smooth. Victoria didn't show up, but HR paid me for an extra 6 months. Ms. Prescott's orders, they said. I nodded. When I packed up my things, it all fit in a single small box. 5 years, and I had nothing to show for it. The sun was bright as I walked out of the Prescott Industries building. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. It felt like being released from prison. I was heading for the subway when a familiar Bentley pulled up. Sophia got out of the driver's seat. Sunglasses covered most of her face, but I could tell she had lost weight. We need to talk, she said, her voice a little hoarse. I walked around her. There's nothing to talk about. She grabbed my wrist. I'm pregnant. I stopped dead. She slowly took off her sunglasses. There were dark circles under her eyes. It's yours. I'm 2 months along. I looked at her flat stomach and laughed. Sophia, if you're looking for someone to take the fall, at least find a believable one. We broke up. She bit her lip. We hadn't used protection. She'd been so insistent. It was true, we hadn't. But what makes you think it's mine? I asked, my voice cold. Don't you have a new boyfriend? That model. Tears suddenly welled up in her eyes. He's my brother. My actual brother. He was visiting from Europe. I froze. I thought about the resemblance, the similar shape of their eyes. My mind was reeling, but I hardened my heart. So what? Was it fun, that whole performance? She clutched my sleeve, her voice breaking. The bet with Victoria wasn't real. But my feelings for you were... I was furious at the engagement party. I saw the text Victoria sent you. I frowned. What text? She pulled out her phone and showed me a picture. It was from the night of the fire. Victoria had taken a picture of me sleeping. The caption was my hero. The timestamp was from the night before our engagement party. I waited for you to explain, but you never called me. Sophia's tears fell faster. I just want to make you angry. I never thought you'd actually leave. I looked at her red-rimmed eyes, a dull ache in my chest. But then I remembered the humiliation of the last 3 months, and I pushed her away. Sophia, are you done playing games? Wasn't tricking me once enough for you? She shook her head frantically. No, it's not. I'm really pregnant. She pulled out a lab report. The date of conception lined up perfectly. I stared at the paper for a long time. Finally, I said in a choked voice, get rid of it. I can't afford it. Her face went pale. You don't want our baby. I looked away. How much will it cost? I'll pay for it. She slapped me hard. You're a bastard, Ethan. I licked my split lip. I know, a bastard who's not good enough for you. So leave me alone. I turned and walked away. She was screaming behind me. You're going to regret this. I didn't look back. I was afraid if I did, I would give in. The subway was crowded. I stood in a corner, clutching my box, Sophia's pale face haunting me. What if she was telling the truth? Then these last 3 months must have been hell for her too. But why? Why did she have to test me in the most hurtful way possible? And now she shows up, telling me she's carrying my child. When I got back to my apartment, Victoria was waiting at the door. There were several gift baskets at her feet. These are for your sister, she said, looking uncomfortable. And I wanted to see you off. I opened the door and let her in. Thanks, but you didn't have to. She frowned at my shabby rental. You live in a place like this. Why don't you come back with me? I poured her a glass of water. This is fine. She suddenly grabbed my hand. Ethan, I looked into it. Sophia might be telling the truth. That model really is her brother. I pulled my hand back. So it was a misunderstanding, she said urgently. For someone as proud as her. To come and find you today, it must mean... I cut her off. Victoria, this doesn't concern you. She froze, then gave a bitter smile. You're right. It doesn't. She stood up and walked to the door, then turned back to look at me. But I'm just saying if you had never met her, would you have liked me? I was silent for a long time. There are no ifs. Her eyes were red, but she smiled and nodded. Okay, then I wish you. The rest of her sentence was cut off by the closing door. I leaned against it and slid to the floor. My phone lit up. An unknown number had sent me an ultrasound picture. A tiny gestational sac like a little peanut. The message said, you don't have to want it, but please come with me to the appointment. I'm scared to go alone. I stared at the image until the screen went dark. Outside, it started to rain just like the night of the engagement party. Finally, I called the number. Which hospital? Sophia's voice was thick with tears. You're coming. I gripped the phone. Yeah, Wait for me. When I got to the hospital, Victoria was there too, standing in the rain with an umbrella. I knew you'd come, she said with a sad smile. I'll go up with you. In the hospital room, Sophia was lying in bed, looking pale. Her eyes turned to ice when she saw Victoria. What are you doing here? Victoria placed a bouquet of flowers on the nightstand. Came to see the show. The great Sophia Hayes, knocked up and unmarried. Sophia grabbed a cup and threw it at her. Get out. I stepped between them. Victoria, you should go. Victoria looked at me. Are you sure you want to get involved with her? Have you forgotten what she did to you? Sophia suddenly ripped the four out of her arm and tried to get out of bed. This is none of your business. Blood welled up from the back of her hand. I rushed over and held her down. Don't move. She took the opportunity to grab my wrist. Ethan, you really don't want me and the baby. Victoria sneered. Who are you trying to fool with this drama? Weren't you the one who pushed him away? The two of them were about to start screaming at each other again. My head was pounding. Finally, a nurse came in and snapped. If you're going to fight, do it outside. The patient needs to rest. Victoria quieted down first. She looked at me. I'll be outside. The room was finally quiet. Sophia leaned her head on my shoulder and sobbed softly. I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. Please don't leave me. I looked at the blood on her hand, my heart feeling heavy and clogged. Is the baby really mine? She nodded vigorously. Only you. It's only ever been you. I silently helped her reinsert the four. She suddenly asked if I wasn't pregnant. Would you have come? I didn't answer, because I didn't know the answer. Victoria was still waiting in the hallway. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. Are you done? I nodded. She asked cautiously, so who do you choose? I looked at her hopeful expression, then thought of Sophia's pale face. I suddenly felt exhausted. I'm not choosing anyone. I'm going back home tomorrow. She froze, then grabbed my arm. Why? Is it because we both hurt you? The rain beat against the window pane like a countdown. I looked out at the dark night. Maybe when I'm a better person, I said softly, I'll deserve to be loved for real, and not as a toy for your amusement. I didn't say the last part out loud, but I knew she understood. Her fingers slowly loosened their grip. I see. She took 2 steps back and forced a smile. Then, goodbye, Ethan. I didn't say goodbye. I just watched her get into the elevator, the numbers descending like a final curtain call. When I returned to the room, Sophia was asleep, a tear still glistening on her eyelashes. I gently wiped it away and sat by her bed all night. She woke at dawn and looked relieved to see me still there. I thought you had left. I handed her a glass of water. We'll do another checkup after breakfast. Will you stay with me? She asked quietly. Yeah. Her eyes brightened. And after that, I didn't answer. I was peeling an apple for her and accidentally cut my finger. As a drop of blood welled up, she quickly grabbed my hand and put the cut to her lips. The warmth of her mouth made me freeze. When I used to get hurt, you would do this for me. She looked up at me, her eyes red again. Can we? A nurse opened the door. We're ready for the procedure now. Sophia suddenly tightened her grip on my hand. I'm not doing it. I held her steady. Don't be difficult. Tears streamed down her face. Then marry me, okay? We can raise the baby together. I looked at her pleading eyes, my heart feeling like it was being torn in two. But in the end, I pulled my hand away. Sophia, some wounds can't be erased just because you're pregnant. The color drained from her face. She looked like all the strength had been sucked out of her. She slowly let go of my hand. Okay, I understand. I walked with her to the door of the operating room. She suddenly turned and hugged me, so tightly it felt like she was trying to merge with my bones. Ethan, I'm sorry. Then she walked in without looking back. The moment the door closed, I felt something inside me shatter. I leaned against the wall and slowly slid to the floor. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. I give up. I hope you'll be happy. I don't know how long I sat there. The light above the operating room door finally went off. The doctor came out, his expression grim. The patient started hemorrhaging during the procedure. We need an emergency transfusion. But she has a rare blood type. I shot to my feet. Use mine. We have the same blood type. The doctor looked at me, surprised. Are you sure? I found out at a checkup last year. I rolled up my sleeve. Take my blood. As they drew my blood, I watched Sophia through the glass. She was as white as a sheet of paper, looking like she could disappear at any moment. A nurse whispered. She was calling your name in her sleep. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. 3 hours later, she was out of danger. She was still unconscious when they moved her to a VIP room. I stayed with her until midnight, eventually falling asleep with my head on her bed. In a daze, I felt someone stroking my hair. I opened my eyes and saw Sophia, crying. Why did you save me? It would have been better if you'd just let me die. I gently wiped away her tears. Don't say that. She took my hand and pressed it to her cheek. The baby's gone. Now you have even less reason to want me. I didn't know how to respond. I just silently helped her drink some water. Victoria visited once while Sophia was recovering. She left some gifts and turned to go. At the door, she said, I'm moving abroad. I'm not coming back. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. You should be good to her. Sophia might be a handful, but she was always more genuine with you than I was. I walked her to the elevator. She suddenly stood on her toes and kissed my cheek. It was quick and light like a feather. Goodbye, Ethan. As the elevator doors closed, I saw her raise a hand to wipe her eyes. When I got back to the room, Sophia was looking out the window. She's gone. Yeah. Are you sad? I didn't say anything. She turned to look at me, her eyes misty. If I died, do you think you'd remember me for longer? I frowned. Don't talk like that. She suddenly smiled, a smile that was sadder than tears. Just kidding. The day she was discharged, I went to take care of the paperwork. When I came back, the room was empty. A nurse handed me a letter. Ms. Hayes left this for you. The elegant script on the stationery was hers. Ethan, I'm letting you go. Go find a normal girl. Get married, have kids. Live a long, peaceful life. Don't remember me. Sophia. I ran to the entrance of the hospital, just in time to see her car disappear around a corner. Her phone number was disconnected. Her family just said she had gone abroad to recover. It was like she had vanished off the face of the earth. I looked for her everywhere she used to go. The yacht club, the Celestial Lounge, her private art gallery. Nothing. Finally, I went back to my apartment. There was a box by the door. Inside was the engagement ring and an ultrasound picture. On the back was written, "Goodbye, my love." I sat and stared at that picture all night. At dawn, I decided to leave the city. My hometown was a small city in the heartland. My parents had used their savings to open a convenience store. My sister was doing well enough to start college. I spent my days helping at the store, making deliveries. Life was quiet, peaceful. Only sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night, thinking I heard someone crying. One day, after a delivery run, I came back to find a black Mercedes parked in front of the store. The license plate was a familiar custom sequence. I instinctively wanted to hide, but the car door opened. Sophia got out. She was wearing a champagne-colored suit. She was even thinner than before, but she looked healthier. She saw the delivery crate in my hands, and her eyes reddened. This is where you've been, doing manual labor? I put the crate down. What do you want? She took a deep breath. I'm here to collect a debt. You owe me a life. Remember? I frowned. I wired you the money for the hospital bills. She shook her head. Not money. The blood transfusion. The doctor said because of my condition, I can only ever carry your children. I stared at her. What does that mean? It means... She suddenly started coughing, her face going pale. I won't live past 40, not without a bone marrow transplant from a direct relative. But my parents are too old. They're not a match. She looked like she was about to collapse. I instinctively reached out to steady her. You should come inside. My parents looked on curiously from inside the store. Sophia greeted them politely. Hello, Mr. and Mrs. Miller. I'm a friend of Ethan's. She was perfectly composed. It was only when we were alone in the stockroom that her strong facade crumbled. Ethan. She clutched my shirt, sobbing quietly. I tried to forget you this past 6 months, but I couldn't. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Look how skinny I am. It was true. Her wrist felt like it would snap in my hand. I sighed. Why are you doing this to yourself? You deserve better. She suddenly looked up and kissed me, her lips salty with tears. There is no one better. There's only you. The stockroom door was suddenly pushed open. Victoria was standing there, a suitcase in her hand. Her eyes darkened when she saw us. Looks like I came at a bad time. Sophia immediately moved to stand in front of me. How'd you find us? Victoria sneered. I followed you. I knew you'd come for him. She looked at me. Ethan, I lied about moving abroad. I was getting treatment. She took off her wig, revealing thin, patchy hair from chemotherapy. Stage 2 breast cancer. The doctors gave me 5 years, max. I stared at her in shock. When did this happen? I found out right before the engagement party, she said with a bitter smile. That's why I deliberately drove you away. I didn't want you to see me looking ugly from the chemo. Sophia scoffed. What a touching story. Let me see your medical records. Victoria actually pulled out a folder. The dates were all there. Sophia's expression changed. So you're here to take him too? It's a fair competition. Victoria came over and took my other hand. I can give you anything she can. And I don't have much time left. Just think of it as taking pity on me. Both women looked at me, their eyes practically trying to tear me in two. My head was spinning. I took a step back. Both of you, just calm down. Suddenly, a sharp pain in the back of my neck. My vision blurred. The last thing I saw was Sophia's apologetic face. I'm sorry. This is the only way. When I woke up, I was in an unfamiliar room, as opulent as a palace. But the windows were sealed shut, and the door was locked from the outside. Sophia came in with a tray. Are you hungry? I made soup. I shot up. Where am I? Our home, she said with a smile. You'll live here from now on. I'll be with you every day. The door was suddenly pushed open. Victoria came in with a serving cart. Oh, you're awake. I made your favorite barbecue ribs. She was wearing the same style of apron as Sophia. It felt like a scene from a horror movie. I watched them warily. You two kidnapped me. Sophia, try to feed me a spoonful of soup. Don't put it like that. We invited you to be our guest. Victoria put a piece of meat on my plate. Besides, could you really turn away 2 sick women? I have cancer. She has a terminal condition. We both need you to take care of us. What kind of twisted logic was that? I tried to get out of bed, but my limbs felt heavy and weak. What did you put in the soup? Just some vitamins, Sophia said, wiping my mouth. We were worried you were exhausted. After that, they took care of me in shifts, feeding me, bathing me, dressing me like a doll. Victoria even read me the Wall Street Journal. So you don't get bored. Sophia insisted on holding me every night as we slept. It's warmer this way. I try to reason with them. This is illegal imprisonment. They looked at each other, and then, at the same time, they both smiled. Victoria produced a document, a certificate from a psychiatric facility. It says you're suffering from paranoid delusions brought on by emotional trauma. Sophia added, we're your legal caretakers. They were insane. They were both completely insane. One day, when they were both out, I managed to pry open a ventilation grate and crawl out. I made it to the garden before the security guard stopped me. Sophia was waiting for me, her arms crossed. Naughty boys have to be punished. After that, a thin chain appeared on my ankle. It was just long enough for me to walk around the room. Victoria knelt to adjust it, whispering, don't hate us. We just love you too much. I looked at her face, pale and tired from her treatments, and asked, are you really sick? She froze, then slowly unbuttoned her collar. The scar on her chest was angry and jagged. Do you believe me now? That night, Sophia cried softly in my arms. Work was so hard today. The board members are trying to push me out. Her hand slipped under my pajama shirt. Can you just hold me? I grabbed her wrist. Sophia, let me go. Her eyes instantly turned cold. And go where? To that cashier at the supermarket? Your father fired her yesterday. I shot up. What did you do? We just help her relocate to another state, she said, smiling as she kissed me. You have us. That's all you need. The next day, the chain was longer. I could make it to the study. On the desk was a live feed from the security cameras at my parents' store. My parents and sister were fine, but in the corner of the frame, a man in a black suit stood watching. The threat was clear. At dinner, Victoria suddenly coughed up blood. I instinctively moved to help her, and she grabbed my hand tightly. See, I really don't have much time left. Sophia calmly called for a doctor. Are you done with the theatrics? The smell of the fake blood packet is disgusting. Victoria wiped her mouth. TSK. Almost had him. I threw my plate on the floor. Is this fun for you? They both went quiet. Sophia spoke first. I'm sorry, but this is the only way we can keep you. Victoria looked down at the chain on my ankle. It was never really locked. You just never try to open it. She pressed a hidden clasp, and the chain fell away. See, you've been free this whole time. I was stunned. Then what? Because you let us, Sophia said, hugging me from behind. Every time you said you were going to leave, you never really fought back. When you gave me your blood, you held me so tight. When I pretended to cry, I know you felt sorry for me. Victoria leaned in the fire. Your first instinct was to protect me. She pushed up my sleeve, revealing the burn scar. Ethan, you have feelings for us. Just admit it. After that day, they didn't lock me in anymore. But I didn't leave. I was like a frog in slowly boiling water, gradually getting used to this twisted life. In the morning, Sophia would kiss me before she left for work. Be good and wait for me to come home. Victoria stayed home with me to recover. The cancer was a lie, but her health really wasn't great. One time, she had a fever and started talking in her sleep. My parents only ever cared about my brother. No one ever stayed with me like you do. I paused, the washcloth in my hand dripping. I remembered how she used to brag about how much her parents spoiled her. It had all been a lie. Sophia came home late one night from a work dinner, drunk and crying as she lay with her head in my lap. My grandfather said a woman can't inherit the family business. He wants to marry me off for a business deal. But I'm going to prove them all wrong. After she fell asleep, Victoria whispered, her father's illegitimate son is trying to take over the company. She's under a lot of pressure. This is the only place she can relax. I looked at their sleeping faces and suddenly understood their loneliness. Two women, imprisoned by their wealth, who only knew how to show love by causing pain. The next morning, I made breakfast. Sophia was shocked. This is the first time you've ever made me eggs. Victoria took a picture of me in an apron. A souvenir. Life went on in this absurd way, until my sister showed up unexpectedly. Ethan, I got into college. She burst through the door and froze. Sophia was feeding me a piece of fruit. Victoria was trimming my nails. All three of us went still. My sister's expression went from joy to shock to pure terror. Ethan, are they holding you hostage? Should I call the police? Sophia quickly regained her composure. We're taking care of your brother voluntarily. Victoria nodded. He hasn't been well. I looked at the acceptance letter in my sister's hand and felt a sudden clarity. Mia, I'm fine. Go home for now. She stood stubbornly in the doorway. Not unless you come with me. Sophia's expression hardened. Little girl, it's best not to get involved in things that don't concern you. Victoria was already on the phone. How did security let someone in? I stopped her. She's my sister. My only sister. We reached a strange compromise. My sister would stay in a guest room to observe. Late that night, she snuck into my room. Ethan, tell me the truth. Are they threatening you? I looked out the window at the security guards patrolling the grounds. Mia, I said softly, I'm in a dream right now. When I wake up, I'll come home. She hugged me, crying. Mom and Dad are so worried. Every time we talk on the phone, you sound so strange. I stroked her hair. Just give me a little more time. The next day, Sophia canceled all her meetings. Victoria cleared her schedule. They took my sister shopping. Luxury cars, jewelry, designer dresses. It was like they were trying to buy her soul. My sister came back, her arms full of shopping bags, her face pale. Ethan, they spent millions on me. They said they'd pay for my entire college tuition, but only if I stopped trying to get you to leave. I looked at the diamond bracelet on her wrist, a heavy feeling in my gut. You'll return everything tomorrow. I'll pay for your school. She suddenly grabbed my sleeve. Actually, Sophia fainted earlier. At the hospital, they found out she's pregnant. I shot to my feet. What? In the hospital room, Sophia was lying weakly in bed. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. Ethan, she took my hand and placed it on her stomach. This time it's real. 2 months. The doctor nodded beside her. Ms. Hayes has a high-risk pregnancy. She needs complete bed rest. My mind was a mess. But we haven't, not recently. She cut me off softly. That night last month when you were drunk. I came to see you. A fuzzy memory surfaced. A dream where she and I were together. It hadn't been a dream. Victoria suddenly burst into the room, waving a lab report. What a coincidence. I'm pregnant too. Just found out yesterday. Sophia sat up abruptly. When did you? Victoria raised an eyebrow, smugly. The night he stayed with me for my birthday. She deliberately pulled down the collar of her shirt. Both women looked at me. Now who do you choose? I looked at their still flat stomachs and suddenly started to laugh. Choose. They're both mine. Of course, I choose both. Sophia stared. Victoria's jaw dropped. You'll take responsibility? I leaned down and took each of their hands. But from now on, there are 3 rules. First, no more lies. Second, if either of you tries any tricks that could hurt the babies, I'm done. And third, I looked at their brightening eyes. Get along. Don't scare the kids. After that day, the mansion became strangely harmonious. Sophia dismissed all the security guards. Victoria removed the hidden cameras. They even started going to prenatal yoga together, though they still competed in their own ways. Ethan, she stole my imported acai bowl. Liar, I blended it myself. But at least there was no more drugging or faking cancer. When my sister came to visit on her college break, she was stunned. Ethan, what is this? Sophia gently offered her a plate of fruit. Call me your sister-in-law. Victoria patted the seat next to her. We're your other sister-in-law. My sister looked at the matching aprons we were all wearing and burst out laughing. Dad said to bring your wife home for Thanksgiving. He didn't say there were 2 of them. At the first ultrasound, the doctor had a complicated expression. Both babies are very healthy. But Ms. Hayes, due to your unique condition, I'd recommend limiting. On marital activities, Victoria immediately shot her hand up. What about me? The doctor cleared his throat. Ms. Prescott, everything is normal. Just try to remain stress-free. In the car on the way home, Sophia leaned her head on my shoulder. I know she drugged you that night. Victoria snorted. And I know someone faked a terminal illness to get sympathy. I looked out the window at the passing scenery and gently squeezed both their hands. What happened in the past, let's leave it there. From now on, we move forward. Their due dates were in the same month. When Sophia went into early labor, Victoria was in the delivery room next door for a stress test. Tell her to keep it down. She's upsetting my baby. A nurse ran back and forth between the rooms. Ms. Prescott, Ms. Hayes was wondering if she could borrow your breathing coach. Tell her to dream on. In the end, 2 baby girls were born just 3 hours apart. I was holding one in each arm, completely overwhelmed, when Sophia weakly beckoned me over. Let her hold them first. She was in more pain. Victoria froze, her eyes slowly turning red. You weren't yelling that loud, I guess. Their tiny hands gripped my fingers, as if holding on to my entire fragile life. The evening breeze blew through Sophia's and Victoria's hair, brushing against my cheek. They both smelled like the same shampoo, the family-size bottle I'd picked out for them yesterday.